It's Saturday night, and there's only one man who can stand up to tyranny. It's the Weekend Sit and Spin with your host, Nicholas O'Kelly.
That's right, it is Saturday night, and I am your host, Nicholas O'Kelly, come to you live from all the way in Germany. It's about 9:20 over here in the evening. I guess that makes it about 3:20 on stateside, East Coast anyway. Glad you can join us. Been away for a couple of weeks here. Had a nice vacation. Went on a cruise on the Baltic Sea. Pretty incredible cruise. Never really knew a whole lot about the Baltic Sea. I mean, you think about that, and I mean, of course, you think of Northern Europe, but was able to get quite a bit of history on the harbors, which made up the main commerce of that area throughout history. Of course, this includes St. Petersburg, Tallinn, Estonia, Hamburg, and Germany here, and Stockholm, Sweden, and Helsinki as well, and Norway. All of these were city-states that made up something of a medieval corporation that basically held all of the power back in the day, and were able to take a monopoly on shipbuilding in the Baltic Sea, were able to take a monopoly on the commerce and the transportation of goods. Very, very interesting. Of course, we also got to get off the boat and see these great cities. Never had been to any of these, actually, but Stockholm, heard a lot about it, of course. Went to the ABBA Museum, if you're a fan of ABBA, which I am. That was a really incredible, interactive rock museum, or a pop rock, I guess, of course, museum. Never quite been to a musical museum like this before. Of course, I've been to the Country Music Hall of Fame in Nashville. I've been to a few others through my life. Hard Rock, of course, in a bunch of different cities, has lots of things to look at. But this one was very interesting. They had a lot of digitally interactive showpieces where you could actually get up in front on a stage that they had set up in there, and there was a digital rendering of the entire band that would be around you on like a scrim, almost like the deal they did with Tupac. And you stood up there and they took a video of you singing along with the band. Very, very cool. How innovative to incorporate that into a museum. They also had a mock studio, which ABBA had their own studio that they built themselves. A lot of bands do this now, but that wasn't something that was so popular back when they were first recording. A lot of bands, of course, went to the major record labels. It's only now, I think, in the past couple of decades here that we've seen more and more bands with their own studios as they've gotten more and more money. But ABBA did this as well. Had a place that they could go to, and they had a studio set up where you could actually look in at a replica of what they had there. It was very cool. And one part of this was some singing booths where you could go into an actual mock of their singing booths and record yourself singing. They had a mix challenge where you could hear the music and mix it for yourselves, take all this home with you. Very cool. I suggest if you ever have a chance to go to Northern Europe, not that any of my listeners would, but nevertheless, it's very, very interesting. So, took a couple of weeks off because we were on the cruise ship, and then got back on Sunday. Normally I do this show on Saturday night, so just haven't had a chance to get back on the air until now. And what a week it's been. I mean, this has really been, if you want to talk about a wild week of news. Started out back on Sunday, I guess it was. We were hearing or seeing headlines of coal mines opening in Pennsylvania. Now, I've said the entire time after Trump's election that his entire goal, and I think it's pretty obvious at this point, is to restart the economy. I mean, this is what Trump wants to get to doing. Working on the economy, building the economy, bringing jobs back to working America. This is what he ran on. This was part of his platform during the election. This is what he wants to focus on, and it's very sad, in my opinion. It's really pathetic, in fact, that the liberal left simply won't let him do it. And the question is why? I mean, I still can't quite understand what the overall problem they have with Donald Trump is. They're fabricating all of these different issues with Russia, collusion, which is totally ridiculous. Now they're moving on to obstruction of justice. You notice that they started with the Russia collusion topic, and they beat that horse until it was so beyond death that there is no evidence whatsoever. There hasn't been evidence since the very beginning. We can pull up videos of even Maxine Waters saying that there's no evidence. She's seen no evidence until now. So many other congressmen have come on television in articles in the newspapers. They've given quotes saying there is no evidence. They've seen nothing. So far, they keep that's always the little line, the qualifier they put on there is so far we haven't seen anything because there is no evidence. And even Jeff Sessions rescued himself from the whole investigation, which to this day I think Trump probably is upset with him over this. But there is simply no evidence beyond a couple of meetings between Jeff Sessions and the ambassador, a few other people. I mean, the thing is, the president-elect, his staff, they talk with ambassadors. That's a normal part of the job. Once you're president, you are supposed to talk with your ambassadors. It's so ridiculous that somehow that's become somehow criminal activity. But yet the liberal left wants to continue to push that paradigm that Trump has committed some kind of a criminal act by talking with the Russian ambassador. The fact of the matter is that the left wants to have a conflict with Russia. Why, you ask? Well, I think there's lots of different reasons that goes into that answer. One of them, of course, is the military-industrial complex wanting to start another war. Russia seems to be the perfect target because it, like the other ones we've started in the Middle East, can be an ongoing war. But it's a bad idea to start a war with Russia because, of course, they are another nuclear power. They may not have an extremely strong economy right now, but, of course, they have resources. They have the ability, unlike the Middle East, to maintain stable governance during wartime. And this is bad news for us. So why they're continuing to push this idea of having a war or having some kind of conflict with Russia is beyond me. But it seems that that is their ultimate goal. Otherwise, they wouldn't continue talking about collusion with Russia. Megyn Kelly even has now had an interview with Putin that happened a couple of weeks ago, aired on NBC, which, by the way, that's something else that's come out this week, is the whole Megyn Kelly-Alex Jones situation. We'll talk about that a little bit, where Megyn got with Alex and said, I want to do a profile interview with you where we talk about you in general. She even said Alex has tapes where he recorded conversations between he and her where she was saying it's going to be a softball interview where we simply talk about some controversies, of course, but we want it to be something that even the left can say, that's an interesting interview, he's an interesting person, and so on. And then when the interview began, and he's talked about this extensively, it seems that she basically did nothing but attack him on things he had said about Sandy Hook, on things he had said about 9/11, and on and on and on, painting him once again as this conspiracy theorist rather than a credible source of information, a news source. That's what InfoWars has become, whether you like it or not. They are indeed alternative media because they don't have network cable channel. They don't have the network cable money. But nevertheless, still a valid, credible source of information. They break news stories all the time. I get a lot of information from there because it's simply, okay, yes, there is a bias. All news, in my opinion, has a bias. You notice that Fox News now has taken down their slogan of fair and balanced. Not that they're not fair, Not that they are not themselves balanced, but of course there is that conservative bias on it. It's the same with InfoWars. It's more of a libertarian bias, I would say, a constitutionalist bias, but nevertheless, you can call it conservative. You're not going to find any liberal left propaganda going on in InfoWars, and that's certainly, in my opinion, what the left has become. Nothing more than a major propaganda machine. I'm still writing a book. I'm having a hard time with this thing because so many things are coming out about Trump. I'm writing a book called Trumping Imperialism, talking about how the Trump administration is good for America and how it is. They want to call him an imperialist, but that's pretty much the opposite of what it is. But I'm having a hard time because so many things are coming with this, with all of the Trump news in the media. It's hard to keep up with it and still get it into a book which has a timeline that isn't out of date. But that's what the left is, and I talk about this in the book, is a propaganda machine. They keep trying to fabricate stories just to attack against the Trump administration, rather than letting him get to work and do good for our country. And that's the real irony of the whole thing. Instead of letting him get to work, he's got to be on the defense all the time. And therefore, it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy that he's unable to do the things that he ran on during his campaign, which are all, in my opinion, good for America, making America great again, because they won't leave him alone. He's got to constantly be on the defense. He's had to hire his own attorney now because of this absolute ridiculous nonsense that's coming out of the left. And it's really over the top at this point. Nevertheless, the man is still managing to do some good for the economy. It starts with this first new coal mine of Trump era, opens in Pennsylvania. Of course, he's pulled us out now of the climate accords in Paris. I thought it was very interesting to find out, there was an article that came out talking about how America actually has cleaner air than most of the rest of the world. But it has a cleaner air than Germany, than France, than Britain. And yet those are the people trying to get us to join this climate accord who want to tell us how to live our lives because supposedly we're not capable of producing clean air. We're not capable of taking care of the environment. Merkel wants to tell America how to conduct its own business because we, according to the climate accord, are not proactive enough to help the environment. Well, Trump, of course, has pulled us out of this, which is something Obama should have done. Of course, he's too progressive for that, so that wasn't going to happen. But Trump doing exactly what he said he was going to do, he's turning back a lot of these Obama agendas, which, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of conservatives, were nothing more than to stifle the American economy, put us in a disadvantage situation. And so Trump now rolling those back systematically, which is what we put him in office to do. Of course, we also want him to drain the swamp, and I think part of the problem is that he's been trying to negotiate with the swamp a little bit too much. I mean, don't you think? Don't you think that's part of what the issue is? I've got a video I can play of Rush Limbaugh talking about the swamp has got Trump playing the swamp's game, and that's not what Trump was elected to do. And that's totally true. We elected him to go hardcore after these career politicians, after the quote-unquote swamp, and that's what I want to see from Trump. I want him to go on the offense. I want him to start indicting these people. Take a listen.
And he could fire Mueller. There's nothing stopping him from doing it. Nothing legally. He could go to Rosenstein right now. He would be perfectly within his bounds to go to Rosenstein and say, look, this investigation can't be wide open for anything. You've got to limit what these people can look for. You've got to limit it to actual felonious crimes. You can't have them subpoenaing anybody they want, financial records, tax records. There has to be a limit. He would be perfectly within his bounds to do that because he is the executive branch. And if he wanted to fire these people, he could. When you see in the media, there's no way he can do it, they're talking politically. that since the independent counsel, special counsel's been named, and now since they've made sure to leak that Trump is under investigation, that is supposed to tie his hands, but it cannot tie his hands legally. If he wants to fire these people, he can. And if he wants to endure the excrement show that happens, he can. If he wants to drain the swamp, he could keep doing it. Now, the point is that once Trump's inaugurated, already under a cloud of suspicion, that it limits his ability to drain the swamp, because when he begins, it taints what he's doing, as rather than draining the swamp, he's getting rid of people who could put him in trouble. That's what Josh here is saying. And all that is true. But it need not stop him. What is being relied on, therefore, is conventional inside the Beltway thinking. Look, the Constitution has devised for every branch of the government. The Founding Fathers were smart people, folks. They anticipated that there would be a never-ending quest to consolidate power. They understood human beings. And they understood that the executive branch was going to be trying to become dictator. They understood the legislative branch was going to be trying to overthrow the executive. They understood that the judges are going to try to trample over everybody. And so they gave every branch defense mechanisms against various forms of attack in order to maintain the separation of powers. And these are still in place today. These various mechanisms that the branches constitutionally can use to rein in, say, an overzealous executive, or that a president can use to rein in overzealous members of the executive branch. The executive branch cannot run anything legislatively and vice versa. Now, Obama was able to take over legislative branch because they ceded it to him. The Democrats ran it, and they said, we're more than happy because we believe in centralized command and control. And since we love Obama, since he's God, since he's Mr. Perfection, we are happy to cede our power to him. And they did. Republicans have no desire to cede their power to Trump. They're holding on to it, so Trump's in a battle with his own party for power. And, of course, the DOJ is not equally powerful as the executive branch. It is part of the executive branch. It does not have independent powers. The built-in defense mechanisms are what are being employed now. Okay, we've announced a special counsel, and he's announced that the president's under investigation, and so the political reality, the political consequences of using his executive power to broom all these people out of there is designed as a deterrent. But he could still do it. It's not constitutional or legal prohibition stopping him. It's pure politics. And it's the politics of the swamp, folks. The swamp has got Trump playing the swamp's game right now. And that's not what Trump was elected to do, and that's not what Trump wants to do. Trump does not want to play the swamp's game. I think the first effort to get health care passed in the House was Trump playing the swamp game. And by swamp game, I mean the traditional way you get legislation passed. Somebody in the House comes up with a bill working.
And he's exactly right about that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Trump has tried to come in and negotiate with these people because he's a businessman, and he gives everyone the benefit of the doubt. I think it's an excellent trait. He's an older guy. He's very experienced. I think he's probably ran across a lot of people during his time as a businessman that maybe he didn't quite agree with, but ended up getting results. And so I think because of that, he probably gives people that benefit of the doubt, which he should. And he came into office wanting to do that for the people in the White House. But now that he's been on the defensive for so long, in my opinion, it's time to go on the offense. It's time to start striking back. Just like Limbaugh was saying there, he could very well fire all of these people. I mean, he could get rid of Mueller if he wanted to. He brought the guy in. I can't believe he brought in a special investigator for this. I mean, that was only to silence the left, and now it's causing even more problems. Because Mueller, that's another thing, this past week has been loading up on Democrats as a part of his witch hunt, is what I would call it anyway, people who have donated to the Clinton campaign. I mean, how is that not collusion? How is that not unfair? You're bringing in a special prosecutor to appease the left, and then he hires a bunch of donators to the Clinton Foundation. This is a big problem, in my opinion. But I don't want to get too far off topic because we're going to get into that. I just wanted to make the point here at the beginning of the show that even though all of this is going on, Trump is still having results, implementing good things, bolstering the economy, which is exactly why we put him in office. President Trump lauded the opening of the nation's first new coal mine in recent memory. Corsa Coal Company will operate the mine in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh. Corsa CEO George Deathlison said the mine will be a boon to the struggling local economy. He praised Trump's easing of regulations and encouragement for fossil fuel exploration. He told Leland Vitter that for the 70 positions available in the mine, 400 people applied. It's a hard day's work, but it's worth it. And that's just one thing. I mean, he's got now also Ivanka joining him in the push for more jobs. This is the kind of role that I'd like to see her in if she's going to be in the White House. I can't really keep her from being in the White House. It's not my decision. It's not the American people's decision. Trump can appoint whoever he wants. I think Ivanka seems to be a nice person. She seems to be very intelligent. Nevertheless, a lot of the things that she goes off the cusp on when she's in the media, she's been doing that a lot, by the way. She went to this past week. I mean, this has been so much going on this week. It's really unbelievable. Good Morning America had her this past Monday, I think it was, on Fox News. I have this article. Ivanka Trump surprised by viciousness, ferocity of father's critics, and that's pretty much the same thing we've been hearing also from Trump's son. But Ivanka Trump, in an interview Monday with Fox and Friends, said she has been... Oh, it's not Good Morning America, I apologize. That was just the headline. It was Fox and Friends. She has been surprised by the viciousness and ferocity that greeted her father's presidency, but also said President Trump felt very vindicated, quote-unquote, by former FBI Director James Comey's recent Senate testimony. Can you believe the circus that this testimony thing for Comey was? I mean, there was literal bars in Washington in the headlines which had happy hour during, I think it went on from 9 in the morning or so until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon is when it ended. I watched a good portion of it, actually. I've got this Sling box set up now where I have a cable box in the United States, and I can use the Sling box to watch cable over here in Germany. It's been very, very helpful. I'll put a little plug in there for Slingbox. If you are someone who travels a lot, if you live for a short period of time, or if you have to stay for a short period of time away from home, or like I said, if you just travel a lot, you go on vacation all the time, or for longer periods of time, and you don't want to pay for cable at your campground that you're going to, or maybe if you don't want to, wherever you go doesn't have the type of cable or channels that you like, Slingbox allows you to have full control over your actual cable box. So even things you've recorded, you can continue to record things, all from the comfort of your iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, whatever. It's pretty great. So anyway, with that, I was able to see a good portion of the Comey testimony, which was basically a big flop, in my opinion. I mean, it was a big flop for the liberal left. They built this thing up like, oh, this is going to be the nail in the coffin. We are taking Trump down with Comey's testimony. And Comey, like he always does, he always, to me, is extremely underwhelming. The guy's very political, which is why I didn't like him. That's why the Democrats didn't like him. The Republicans didn't like him. And Trump fired him because, and people say, oh, well, it wasn't about the fact that he fired him. We didn't like that Comey was in office. We didn't like him. But see, that wasn't the problem. The problem was not that Trump fired him, according to the liberals. The problem was the timing of it. If he was going to fire Comey, why didn't he do it right away? That's malarkey, okay? Trump can fire whoever he wants, whenever he wants, and whatever time he wants. He's the president of the United States. He has that authority. Comey reports directly to him. Well, actually, I guess he reports to the Attorney General. But he reports to the president. He serves at the pleasure of the president. Comey said so himself. But it's all about the timing. It's the way they spun it. They spun it to make it look bad. Okay, yeah, sure. He had opened an investigation into Trump's collusion, which there's no evidence of. Comey himself, under oath, in the past week, said it again. He had said it before, that there was no evidence. Trump was not under investigation. It was just a matter of whether or not there was interference from the Russian government in the election. That was the general investigative topic. Comey wasn't investigating Trump, which is also why I really don't understand why Trump went ahead and appointed the special prosecutor, or his administration, Robert Mueller. I get that they're trying to appease the left, but I think it was a mistake, because now it's turned into this witch hunt. Comey was one thing. Okay, I get it. The timing looks a little strange or whatever because he had just opened the investigation, but the FBI is still investigating. That was the other thing that came out of Comey's testimony. They're still investigating. It was an open investigation when he was fired. Trump didn't obstruct anything. The whole, and that's what it is. Now that there is simply no evidence to prove anything, they've shifted the focus from it being a Trump administration collusion with Russia. That's gone now. The focus is now turned to this idea of obstruction of justice. That's what they got Bill Clinton for, and this is still like revenge from the Democrats for Bill Clinton. They want to try to put obstruction of justice on Trump. Can you imagine? The only quote-unquote thing, I mean, it wasn't obstruction. The only thing Trump did was ask Comey to let it go with the general. I'm losing his name. Trump can ask Comey to do whatever he wanted to. Trump did not say, and Comey admitted this under oath, he did not say, stop your investigation. He did not try to hinder the investigation because he's got nothing to hide. Anyway, getting back to Ivanka, a political novice like her dad who has been thrust into the Washington spotlight as a senior advisor to the president, nevertheless glided past the more controversial interview topics like a seasoned vet Monday, but she did provide a glimpse into the First Family's daily battle with detractors. Quote, there's a level of viciousness that I was not expecting. I was not expecting the intensity of this experience. She also added, but this isn't supposed to be easy. My father and this administration expects to be transformative. President Trump, of course, has been routinely assailed by a Democratic opposition that, at the least, seeks to stall his ambitious agenda and, in some quarters of the party, seeks impeachment, which I've seen that this week as well, that now they're talking about more and more that President Pence sounds good. Once again, can you imagine that they would actually, with no evidence, think that they're going to be able to impeach Trump? Impeach him for what? What's he doing that's so wrong? Colluding with Russia? It's crazy. I mean, this has really gone over the top. I saw it from Hannity pretty recently, too. Let me see, pull this up here. Hannity on the media says, what we're seeing now is the unelected fourth branch of government looking for retribution. Friday on Fox News Channel's Hannity, host Sean Hannity used his opening monologue to criticize the media for what he said was an effort to overturn the results of last November's presidential election, which is absolutely what it's become. Like I said, it's more or less a witch hunt. He says the unelected fourth branch of government, the deep state, is trying to overturn the results of November's election and throw this president out of office. So how did a bunch of unelected bureaucrats get so much power, feel so emboldened that they think they can undermine a duly elected president of the United States and just take over? Like I said, in my opinion, it's more or less retribution. Take a listen.
The government is now being aided and abetted by the Destroy Trump media, all in a massive effort to damage and destroy President Trump. Now, this week alone, we have seen unprecedented and potentially criminal leaks from the deep state to the liberal Washington Post. Now, the liberal smear machine is masquerading as a news outlet in their reporting, citing, of course, once again, anonymous sources that the special counsel is now investigating the president for possible obstruction of justice and that Robert Mueller is also looking into Jared Kushner's finances and business dealings. Okay, how is it possible that they dare to leak information almost every single day without any fear of consequences? And by the way, they're wrong so often. President Trump responding to that report today, tweeting, quote, "I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director." That's a witch hunt. Now, the president, of course, is referring to the Deputy Attorney General, Rosenstein, who, in a 2-page memo, laid out the strongest case on why Comey needed to be fired. Now, Rosenstein, now he wants an investigation by the special counsel to investigate why the president fired Comey and whether or not this was the right thing to do. This is insanity. And by the way, the special counsel now has 13 attorneys, and on top of that, including Hillary Clinton's attorney and multiple attorneys that donated to both Obama and Hillary Clinton. Now, predictably, the Destroy Trump media, they're jumping all over this.
That's what I was mentioning earlier, that Mueller
President
is
Trump's
really
downfall.
loading up
Let me
the
remind
guns,
you,
it seems,
the
to try to
Washington
take
Post,
out Trump
ABC News,
himself.
the New York Times,
He's supposed to be
CNN, NBC, They have
unbiased.
all gotten it wrong on this issue. They all, at this point, with the American public, should have zero credibility. So we have to take these latest so-called smoking gun reports, come out late night, every night, with a grain of salt. Last night, the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, he issued this statement about trusting these stories about the, quote, coming out of the fake news media. He said this. He said, Americans should exercise caution before accepting as true any stories attributed to, quote, anonymous officials, particularly when they do not identify the country, let alone the branch or the agency of government with the alleged sources supposedly are affiliated. Americans should be skeptical about anonymous allegations. Now, the Department of Justice has a long-established policy to neither confirm nor deny such allegations. You know what? I don't trust any of them at this point. On top of that, James Comey, remember, he testified last week, the media has been so dead wrong when it comes to stories about Russia. And by the way, while all of that is alarming, it proves everything we have been saying on this program. This deep state, this fourth branch of government, as we're calling it, doesn't care about getting the truth to you, the American people. And, of course, the media, they're the willing accomplices. Their goal is the exact opposite here. They are selectively leaking information, intelligence information, that is meant to damage, in this case, the President of the United States of America, which is exactly what we have been seeing now almost on a nightly basis. Here's a perfect example. James Comey told President Trump he wasn't under investigation. Somehow, that's the only one thing that never got leaked to the press. Why? The reason should be obvious. And what's worse is the growing targets for the deep state. They've been successful in totally slowing down the president's agenda, Congress's agenda. Now, so far, they haven't been able to stop him, which means the deep state is now going after anyone who's even close to the president, including his family and White House advisors. And by the way, even people in the media. The deep state now plans to create as much collateral.
All right, that's enough. I think you get the idea. And he's exactly right there. And the thing is, they're coming after him in some very strange ways. One of the other big controversies that's been going on this week is this whole Shakespeare in the Park, Julius Caesar play that's been going on in Central Park in New York. And basically, it was a running of Julius Caesar, where, of course, Julius Caesar is assassinated at the end of the play. But the spin here is that the characters, I suppose, I haven't seen the play, but they've supposedly been updated to a modern-day retelling of this story. They're all in business suits, and it's about modern-day politics, almost like a House of Cards kind of thing going on. And, of course, at the center of it, the Julius Caesar character looks exactly like Trump. And therefore, at the end of the play, they assassinate him very violently. And this, I mean, first of all, I want to ask you, the listeners, if this ever happened where Obama was the center of such a display, back a couple of years ago, can you imagine what the media would have done? How much persecution would have gone on by the conservatives who would put on such a thing? Of course, we, the conservatives, we, the libertarians, the right wing, I guess if you want to call it, didn't do such a thing because it is so derogatory. It is so wrong. I mean, to show something like that technically is treason. You're not supposed to go and show any kind of threat towards our president, our elected president. That is a crime. I understand this is art and all this kind of justifications go behind the safety for art to express themselves or whatever. But this is our president, and I don't understand how this can be allowed to go on. Kathy Griffin, that's another one. And in my opinion, all of these things are kind of coming together to sort of get people used to the idea of a Trump assassination. And that sounds a little extreme. But how else could you possibly take that? Where they're killing a Trump lookalike in Central Park, where Kathy Griffin is doing some kind of a weird commercial protest art piece, whatever it was, where she's bloody, and she's holding up the decapitated head of what was very clearly supposed to be President Trump. That was really strange. That's like ISIS style. These are things that you see coming from terrorist groups in the past couple of decades, right? People holding up decapitated heads? Why would Kathy Griffin do something like this? And then she's on television saying it's not fair how people are coming after her for doing that. She was just trying to express herself. I don't understand what exactly she was trying to express by doing something so repulsive, so derogatory. In my opinion, these people should be boycotted immediately. This Shakespeare in the Park, there should be no one there. After that first showing, where people realized what was going on, there should be no one else going to see this play because it's awful, it's offensive, it's wrong. We should be getting behind our president, regardless of what you think about him. I mean, the guy, like I said, has done nothing wrong. He's done nothing against America. Think about how much bad Obama had done by this point. He is trying to roll back these agendas put in place by Obama, which were a detriment to the country, and is trying to get back our economy. I was mentioning earlier, I didn't finish the thought, that Ivanka is now also joining him with the push to create jobs. I'm not going to go too much in detail because we simply have more to go over. But nevertheless, the New York Times vows to stand by theater despite Trump Julius Caesar controversy. New York's venerated theater organization, the Public Theater, is facing a PR disaster, as it should, over its long-running free Shakespeare in the Park series. The organization is mounting a production of Julius Caesar, which ends with the Roman politician being assassinated. Of course, many far-right online personas, including Donald Trump Jr., consider this to be offensive, given that Caesar appears Trump-like in this particular production. It depicts him with blonde hair and modern attire. A flurry of online trolling and hysteria over the show has resulted in 2 corporate sponsors, those being Bank of America and also Delta, as I said, as they should, cutting ties with the Public Theater. I would expect that. And you know, kudos to Delta for doing that. Such a large organization. I fly Delta all the time. I'll continue to do so now. But in my opinion, that's exactly what they should do. This is wrong. This is disgusting. And if you are a corporation that it's a free production. You don't have to pay to go to it, which means they're sponsored. There are major corporations sponsoring them. They, of all people, should not be attacking our president. I mean, they're basically getting funding for free from corporations, working in the confines of our Constitution. These people shouldn't be pulling this kind of mess. Unbelievable. But not everyone is ready to cut and run. Today, the New York Times, another corporate sponsor, confirmed to me, and this being the writer of this article from fastcompany.com, that it will continue supporting the theater. The Times have a statement that says, quote, "We have sponsored Shakespeare in the Park for 20 years. As an institution that believes in free speech for the arts as well as the media, we support the right of the Public Theater to stage the production as they choose." So, there you go. Let's take a break from that type of news for just a second because I'm trying to do a weekend review here. There's been so much going on. I don't know if this is quite the right music for this, but I tell you what, let's find a different one here. Okay, no, that's fine. Some very sad news this week. Yeah, this music just cut it. It's terrible. Do we not have something? Yeah, okay, just cut the music. All right, it's sad news this week. Adam West, at 88 years old, TV's Batman, of course, died. Another actor, a beloved actor, has left us. Bat signals were put up all over the country. It was pretty cool. Charleston actually had some digital billboards next to the interstate that runs through the main part of the city with the bat signal on the digital display. I thought that was pretty cool. In Hollywood, they put it up on one of the tall buildings. Adam West, an actor defined and also constrained by his role in the 1960 series Batman, died Friday night. Last week in Los Angeles, not this past Friday, but the one before. He was 88. A representative said that he died after a short battle with leukemia. Very sad. Quote, "Our dad always saw himself as the bright knight and aspired to make a positive impact on his fans' lives. He was and always will be our hero." That's what his family said in a statement. Of course, he became known to a new generation of TV fans through his recurring voice role on Fox's Family Guy as Mayor Adam West, who was a horribly corrupt, inept, and vain leader of Quahog, Rhode Island. He was regular on that show from starting in 2000 until the most recent season. He also did a wide range of voiceover work. He was on Robot Chicken on Adult Swim. He was on the Disney Channel. Jake the Neverland Pirate was also one of his roles. And I also saw, if you're a fan of DC animated movies, which I am, went and saw Wonder Woman with my wife just a couple of nights ago. It was pretty good. I felt like they were more or less copying Captain America, the first Captain America movie. It was a very old school, like they went back to World War I in this movie, whereas Captain America went to World War II. But anyway, it was kind of like a flashback style movie, wartime kind of thing. And she was involved in the controversy between the countries because one of the American spy pilots landed at Themyscira, and she had to, Steve Trevor, she had to take him back to London and then got involved in the conflict herself. It was a pretty good story. Like I said, the thing is, they kind of copied the Captain America story. It was almost like a mesh of that and Saving Private Ryan. So I wasn't blown away. It got really good ratings. I think that's more or less because it was probably the best DC movie that's come out. I thought the Man of Steel movie, the Superman movie that was titled Man of Steel that came out a couple of years ago was also decent. But other than that and this one, I mean, Suicide Squad, I went and watched it again. It like so many other Zack Snyder films, starts well. There's a big build-up of storyline, and you think it's going to be good, and it's pretty good storytelling. But then in the end, it just ends up being a big kind of hodgepodge clash of messy CGI. And there's too much of it. It was the same thing in Batman vs. Superman. There's a lot of build-up in that movie, and you think it's going to be pretty good. And then at the end of it, it just becomes this overbearing CGI thing, and it's just no good. It's like the Ang Lee Hulk. It's not fun to watch. So this one was definitely better. Okay, I'm getting slowly more interested in the Justice League film. But if you want my review, I'll give it about, we'll go with the Rotten Tomatoes style review. I'll give it 70%. I mean, I think it got a much higher rating than that, but really I don't think it deserved it. Anyway, the DC animated movies, however, are pretty fantastic, as well as the cartoons. Warner Brothers does a great job. Adam West did a Batman movie with the original cast of the Batman television series. It came out last year, or 2016, and they did a sequel to it. It was called The Return of the Caped Crusaders, but they did a sequel to the movie, which comes out later this year, which he finished voicing before he died. So we'll get to see him once again. I thought that was pretty interesting to find out. Like I said, I really had I really had no idea that he had done that. Watched the movie, the first one, last night. It was pretty good. I would recommend it. It's pretty funny to see that and very nostalgic. So, some of the reviews that came out about this Trump play, genuinely frightening. That comes from Variety.com. And if Variety is saying that it's frightening, then it definitely is. Brutus is a commanding figure in the public theater's Free Shakespeare in the Park production of Julius Caesar. The wily Mark Antony also looms large, but the most fearsome character in the show isn't standing on stage, not even in the person of a Donald Trump-like Caesar, but instead storming the bleachers and shouting in the aisles. And that's the Roman mob. I'm not going to read this whole thing. It's a thing. Also, I thought it was very interesting that there was some protest. Some protesters just, I think it was last night, ran onto the stage. There's videos that you can see of this, saying that you are Nazis, that you're terrible people, you need to take this play down. And to be very honest, I'm proud of these people. Because this is exactly what you should see when your democracy, the liberal left keeps saying that our democracy is being attacked by the Trump administration because of this collusion malarkey. But the real attack on our democracy is the liberal left spinning the truth, not providing you with the truth when you watch their news programs, and then the New York Times getting behind something that could potentially be a criminal act, portraying the assassination of our president. Kathy Griffin doing the same thing. These are criminal actions. That threatens our democracy. Also mentioned earlier that Mueller was stacking his staff with Democratic donors. I have this from Tuesday from LifeZet.com. Robert Mueller, written by Brendan Kirby, stocked staff with Democrat donors. Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich sparked a mini meltdown in the media on this past Monday, with a tweet challenging the fairness of the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. Gingrich, who also appeared on the Laura Ingraham show, pointed to the early hires special counsel Robert Mueller has made. Quote, Republicans are delusional if they think the special counsel is going to be fair. Look who he is hiring. Time to rethink. He's not wrong about the donations. 4 top lawyers hired by Mueller have contributed tens of thousands of dollars over the years to the Democratic Party and also Democratic candidates, including Obama and Hillary Clinton. One of the hires, Janine Rhee, also worked as a lawyer for the Clinton Foundation and helped persuade a federal judge to block a conservative activist's attempts to force Bill and Hillary Clinton to answer questions under oath about operations of the family-run charity. That's something else that people have, interestingly enough, forgotten about, that when Bill and Hillary were asked to answer questions under oath about their campaign finances, about the Clinton Foundation and so forth, they've refused to. No one's made them do anything. When Hillary Clinton was being investigated for her email scandal, she didn't speak under oath for quite some time. I think she finally did speak to Congress. But anyway, she refused to for a while. Now, why is it that Trump can't do the same thing without being called a criminal? Very, very interesting. All right, moving on. Now, this happened on Wednesday. Pretty scary incident here. Member of Congress was shot. Scalise in stable, and actually they're expecting him now to make a full recovery, but the actual GOP House Whip, Steve Scalise, remains in critical condition after shooting at baseball practice. They were getting ready, the congressmen were, for the annual congressional baseball game. The Democrats won, actually. They presented the trophy to Scalise. But anyway, Representative Steve Scalise, a congressional staffer, a lobbyist, and a member of the Capitol Police Force, were all shot Wednesday in Alexandria, Virginia, during a Republicans' early morning practice ahead of a charity baseball game. Federal law enforcement officials identified, this is coming from CNN, by the way, the alleged shooter as James Hodgkinson, 66 years old, of Belleville, Illinois. Now, a lot of things have come out about this guy since this whole thing happened. He was a Bernie Sanders supporter. Bernie Sanders has now had to come out and say that he didn't approve of these actions. It's been a whole PR nightmare, I would imagine, for Bern. But this guy, I mean, he was walking around with some sort of an assassination list. It's come out of people that he wanted to kill. Of course, his neighbors and other people have come out saying that the guy was really a nutball anyway. But nevertheless, we see that he actually died after having a shootout with the authorities. So good riddance, in my opinion. You can see a video of this shooting. I'm sure that many of you probably have seen this video. It was painted all across the news outlets when it all happened. But it was very scary. I mean, they're out there. I mean, you know what a baseball field looks like. I mean, they're out there in the middle of this thing, and this guy comes up in between the fence, the fence, the holes in the fence, sticks a rifle through it, and just starts unloading rounds. I mean, it was unbelievable. Even Bill Maher came out and said that we would have never really think about this type of shooting, this type of incident happening on the left. We think of the right picking up guns, but not the left.
The shooting.
Take a listen.
Week. It was a liberal. It was a Bernie Sanders supporter. I mean, it's odd. We live in a strange country. You know, we would never really think this would happen on the left. That we think of the right as the people who pick up guns and do crazy things like this. Is it significant that this was a liberal, someone who watched MSNBC all day? Not that they're to blame either, because they certainly are not, and I won't hear it that they're the equivalent of Fox News, because they're not either. They're not the left version of Fox News. They actually cleave to reality.
Let me.
Even Bill Maher saying this is a very strange thing to see, and I have to agree. I mean, not that I want to put everything on the Republicans. I want to be very careful here, but you don't see a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters coming out and committing these type of actions. So it was a very strange situation all the way around. But anyway, at least 6 people, including Scalise, the third-ranking member of House Republican leadership, as the majority whip, were hospitalized. Scalise is still in the hospital. Congressman, quote, Steve Scalise sustained a single rifle shot to the left hip. The bullet traveled across his pelvis, fracturing bones, injuring internal organs, and causing severe bleeding, MedStar said in a statement put out by Scalise's office. He, quote, underwent immediate surgery and an additional procedure to stop bleeding. He has received multiple units of blood transfusion. His condition is critical, and he will require additional operations. We will provide periodic updates. A congressional staffer, Zach Barth, was also shot in the leg and has since been released from the hospital. Matt Mika, lobbyist for Tyson Foods and former congressional staffer, was also identified as one of those shot. He was out of surgery and in critical condition as of Wednesday afternoon, his family said in a statement. Gunman said, quote, kill as many Republicans as possible. That was one of the things that came out about this guy in theweek.com. Representative Mark Walker says gunman targeted congressional baseball practice to, quote, kill as many Republican members as possible. It says here in the week, shortly after the shooting Wednesday morning at a congressional baseball practice, Representative Mark Walker made that statement. Walker, who was at the practice for the upcoming annual congressional baseball game, was confirmed he was shaken but okay. Representative Don DeSantis recounted an odd encounter he had as he was leaving the field just minutes before the shooting. Quote, there was a guy that walked up to us that was asking whether it was Republicans or Democrats out there. And it was just a little odd. Multiple people, including Majority Whip Steve Scalise, 2 Capitol Hill police officers and congressional aide, were reportedly injured. Very, very interesting that you would have something like that from this guy. The smoking gun also has some information on the shooter. The gunman who opened fire this morning on Republican congressmen and staffers recently declared in a Facebook post that it's, quote, time to destroy Trump and company. The accused shooter, James T. Hodgkinson, 66, posted a link to a Change.org petition in late March that included the notation that Trump is a traitor, Trump has destroyed our democracy. It's time to destroy Trump and company. His Facebook page includes numerous photos of Senator Bernie Sanders, whom Hodgkinson appears to have strongly supported during the 2016 Democratic presidential primary. In post last August, he wrote, quote, "I want Bernie to win the White House, and Bernie is a progressive, while Hillary is a Republican light." In a statement, Sanders said that he had been informed that Hodgkinson apparently volunteered on my presidential campaign, adding that I am sickened by this despicable act. And he, of course, has had to come out and, like I said, kind of free himself from the idea that it was somehow his fault. He belonged to anti-GOP groups, distraught over the election. He was a Rachel Maddow superfan, evidently. Left-wing Twitter celebrates. This comes from Grabian News. No sooner did news break that a gunman shot Republican Steve Scalise were left-wing Twitter users celebrating the attack, in which 2 Capitol Police were also shot. Activist and media personality Tariq Nasheed appeared to indicate support for shooting on Twitter. And that tweet from Tariq Nasheed says, "So, Representative Steve Scalise, who once spoke at a white supremacist event sponsored by David Duke, was shot today in Alexandria. Here is a tweet I made about him 3 years ago." And that said, "So white supremacist organization supporter Steve Scalise has found black support, MIA love." Another tweet from Malcolm Harris said, "If the shooter has a serious health condition, then is taking pot shots at the GOP House leadership considered self-defense?" I mean, this is disgusting. And again, I have to ask the question, if this was Republicans doing this, if this was a Republican who had gone out and shot up a bunch of Democratic representatives, if it was a bunch of Republicans going on Twitter saying they approved of it, that they supported that kind of a shooting, I mean, can you imagine the kind of propaganda, the type of spin that would come out of the left-wing media, that would come out of the White House even, and what Obama would even say about this? Trump, by the way, had a pretty nice response to the whole issue. I hearken back to exactly what it was that Obama would say after shootings, and I think Trump gave him a 101 class. We need to quickly move on because there's so many things to go through this week. Like I said, Scalise expected now to make a full recovery, although he wasn't critical for most of the week. Out of the Daily Mail, this was another big issue this week. Very strange occurrence. There was a London inferno, an apartment building caught fire. And this was a massive fire. Lots of people were trapped. Many deaths reported. This comes out of the Daily Mail. Fears that new cladding made Grenfell Tower light up like a matchstick. First bodies are removed from building as 12 are confirmed dead and dozens missing amid chilling warning that nobody on top 3 floors survived. 12 confirmed dead. Death toll will rise after huge inferno broke out at a residential tower block in London. Dozens, including children and elderly, still missing after fire engulfed the Grenfell Tower in White City at 1 a.m. This was back on Wednesday. Many residents believed to still be trapped inside the 27-story building as it teeters on the brink of collapse. Also thought it was very interesting that it didn't collapse. We think back to 9/11. Residents were seen throwing themselves and their children out of windows to avoid being burned to death. I'm not sure that's... that's just so awful. More than 600 residents desperately tried to escape the flames as the fire broke out in the middle of the night. It's really amazing that the fire didn't spread, because if you take a look at the pictures of this thing, there was a park basically directly beside of the building. There were trees surrounding this building. I mean, this fire was like nothing I've seen before. I mean, the entire building was completely engulfed in massive flames. It's incredible to me that it didn't catch fire to the park beside of it and then just go rampaging through the city. Very, very wild. Survivors claimed that there was no working fire alarm. Sprinklers failed, and the only staircase out was blocked. Can you imagine this horror? The London Ambulance Service said 79 people had been rushed to 6 different hospitals around the capital. Grenfell's residents warned landlord KCTMO about appalling fire safety and say refurb contributed to blaze. Just unbelievable. Mom threw baby from 9th floor. There's pictures now that you can see from the inside. Not that you would want to look at that. But very, very shocking story that came from Wednesday. And now we have the residents in London demanding answers for what exactly happened. This is from the AP out of London, with smoke still swirling around the charred remains of Grenfell Tower in West London. Residents and community leaders demanded to know Wednesday how a ferocious fire could have swept through the high-rise apartment block with such speed that it killed at least 12 people. The anger was particularly strong since activists had warned just 7 months ago that fire safety procedures were so lax that only a catastrophic blaze would bring the scrutiny needed to make the building safe. It seems that, unfortunately, sometimes what you ask for is brought to fruition. This seems to be exactly what happened here. What happened is the question. Fire and police officials have not specified what went wrong, but extensive video footage shows the flames climbing the exterior of the building at a remarkable pace. Quote, "I've never seen a fire like that in my life," said Joe Ruin, the former deputy chief fire officer for U.S. Air Force bases in Britain. "I've never seen that in a residential block." And again, I think this will call into question just exactly how these fire safety measures are put into place. We've covered already that Robert Mueller probes obstruction now. It's become something of a witch hunt, so I'm going to skip that. That was some headlines that also rang through on Thursday. But trying to finish up now, Bill Cosby. The jury is deadlocked. I thought it was pretty funny because I saw an article talking about his spokesperson saying that the prosecutor needs to go back to law school. In my opinion, it's a little strange to be, poking fun at the prosecutor when they are going to retry the case, by the way. Basically, the jury just couldn't reach a verdict. I'm sure there's going to be some acquittal here. I can't say that I know what happened in this case. We know that the Bill O'Reilly situation was a witch hunt. I don't know about Bill Cosby. Maybe he did rape all these people. But the guy's pretty old, so the idea of him going to jail, there's got to be some pretty resounding evidence, and evidently that is simply missing. From Fox News, Bill Cosby's spokesperson told Gloria Allred to go back to law school. After the incident assault case against Bill Cosby was declared a mistrial, and that's the official statement now, the comedian's spokesman took aim at a high-profile lawyer representing several of his other accusers. Outside the Montgomery County Courthouse in Norristown, Pennsylvania, Andrew Wyatt quoted a co-founder of the Black Panther Party and criticized Gloria Allred. In the words of Huey P. Newton, power is the ability to define phenomenon, making it an act in a designed manner, quote-unquote. Mr. Cosby's power is back. The jurors, they used their power to speak. Miss Cosby's power is back, he said. Wyatt and Cosby's legacy was restored after Judge Stephen O'Neill declared a mistrial early on Sunday. So you can all sleep easy now. It's finally over. This thing with Bill Cosby has just simply been all the rage in the headlines throughout the week. And that's not the only story. The other story is this Alex Jones situation. I'm at this point trying to just kind of rush through all the topics because we're coming to a close here on the show. But like I said, Megyn Kelly has an interview with Alex Jones. It's being aired on NBC tomorrow night. And I ask you, the listeners, to go take a look at what Alex has leaked. He's leaked some conversations with Megyn Kelly where she was talking about what she wanted to do with the interview, and then what's come out. In my opinion, I haven't seen it yet. I'll see it tomorrow night. I believe this will be something that's very highly edited, will be spun dramatically. So I'm anxious to see. But this has also been major headlines this entire week. Is this whole situation? It was a firestorm, first of all, that happened when Megyn Kelly said that they were going to air the interview with Alex Jones. Chelsea Clinton came out talking about how could she possibly do that because he's said so many bad things about her parents. She was whining and crying. The left was saying that they couldn't support such a thing. How can Megyn Kelly be doing this? In my opinion, that was all spin to bring ratings to Kelly's show. So we'll see. I mean, frankly, her ratings have tanked with this new show of hers. Even with Vladimir Putin being interviewed, she's got terrible ratings. So I don't know what Alex will bring to the table, but the left has certainly tried to make it seem as though it was highly controversial, even though I don't believe the actual interview was. On the day that she came to the studio, I was watching his show. He's joking around with her. You know, they're trying to have a good time, this and that. So clearly she's not out to get him, and that's what she said in her pre-interview conversations on the phone that he's leaked now. But with this edited version, at least in the pilot or the preview tape that they've shown, it seems to me to be more of a gotcha type of interview, which is exactly what she said she was not going for. Nevertheless, to kind of close this whole thing up, the daily presidential tracking report poll from Rasmussen Reports says that now, as of Friday anyway, President Trump's approval rating has jumped to 50%. 50% of likely U.S. voters approve of his job performance. So despite all of the propaganda, despite of all the spin, and this is what I was talking about in the beginning of the show, 50% of America seem to approve of what he's doing. And I think, like myself, they would all agree that if he could just get back to doing his job, if the left would simply leave him alone, then we could go back to making America great again. I have the weekly address from Trump saying there is no dignity in every honest job and there is nobility in every honest worker. He's also going to mention Scalise. So take a listen, and we will close the show with this. You've been listening to the Sit and Spin radio show. It is Saturday evening.
My
I'm
fellow
Nicholas
Americans,
Kelly, and we'll
this
see
week
you
our nation was shocked
next Saturday,
and horrified
same time,
when
same
a gunman
place.
opened fire
Take a listen
on a
to
member
President
of Congress.
Donald Trump.
5 people were wounded in the assault, including a member of House leadership, my good friend, Steve Scalise. Steve is beloved across Washington. He embodies everything public service is about. He's dedicated to his constituents, devoted to his values, and deeply committed to his country. I visited Steve, his wife, and his family in the hospital as he continues to fight for his recovery. 435 members of Congress and 300 million Americans are pulling for him, praying for him, and pledging to him our full and total support. We continue to hold all of those wounded and fighting for recovery in our hearts and prayers, including Matt Micah, who was also badly wounded. In that terrible crime, we also witnessed the incredible heroism of Capitol Police. Special Agent Crystal Griner, who I also had the honor of meeting during my visit to the hospital, raced into gunfire along with Special Agent David Bailey. They saved the lives of our members of Congress and prevented that dark day from becoming a tragedy beyond imagination. They, like so many other courageous police officers, represent the very best of us. We salute them, and we also salute members of the Alexandria Police Fire and Rescue. Though we have our differences, what unites us is so much stronger: our love of our country, our devotion to its people. Now more than ever, these values must guide us and bring us closer together. Let us always remember that our job is to serve and represent the whole American people, and that we are all children of the same God. This week, my administration continues our focus on providing economic opportunity for all. On Thursday, I signed an executive order to launch a groundbreaking new apprenticeship initiative. that will help young Americans learn the skills they need to find a rewarding career, earn a great living, and support themselves and their families. We are celebrating the dignity of work and the greatness of the American worker. American citizens have worked every job, every occupation, no matter what it might be, no matter how grueling, how challenging, or even how dangerous. They wash the windows on our tallest skyscrapers. They create works of art from burning fire and molten steel. They mine the earth and dive the ocean depths to bring energy into our cities and towns. They care for the sick, the elderly, and the wounded. And they lay the bricks, mortar, rebar, and concrete that give us places to live, to work, and to thrive. Today, this is the message I want every young American to hear. There is dignity in every honest job, and there is nobility in every honest worker. Our apprenticeship initiative will make it dramatically easier for employers, industry groups, and unions to create exciting new apprenticeship programs that place students into high-paying careers. Instead of being racked with crushing student debt, those who participate will earn while they learn. Think of that. Earn while they learn. Under our plan, young Americans will have a pathway to exciting and fulfilling careers. They will become brilliant technicians who revitalize American manufacturing. They will become welders who forge from fire amazing works of iron and steel and art. And they will become entrepreneurs who revolutionize entire industries. And these striving American citizens, including millions of talented young American women with tremendous potential, will become the programmers who change the world with the next great technological advance. Every American deserves a path to a great job that they truly love. That begins with the right education, one that gives students the foundation for a lifetime of success. Every day, as your president, I will be committed to this goal. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.